When did she get to choose? When did she decide to follow her dreams and her passion to choose? Nothing at all in what has been mentioned refers to the passion of the woman and what exactly she thinks will bring her happiness herself.
Inspire change.
Good evening to all of you. Okay, so as a kid, when I first went to preschool, I used to take the bus. So, as a child or in this age, you usually look for a motherly figure or a teacher that you could hold on to that would make you feel that everything is going to be okay. On the very first moment, I found this teacher and I was glued to her every single morning on the way to school and going back. The year ends, another year begins, and I don't find this teacher. When I ask why, they said she left her job, she got married. It took me some time to get over this, but immediately I moved on. But again, this has repeated itself as we go to middle school. You look for teachers, you find them disappearing, and you ask why, they say they got married. This has been repeating itself many times with many figures of teachers, doctors, among many others, that they suddenly disappear, and when you ask why, the only explanation is they get married. So this went into my black box of memories. I grow up, I don't really give this much attention. So I finish my BA, and I start my master's, where I'm working on migration, which is highly male-oriented, and a topic that I'm very passionate and devoted to. And I finish my master's. I feel that my passion is missing on something. Yes, I like what I worked on, but there's something missing to complete this passion. So I decide to take it further and start with my PhD. At this point in time, my dad decides to stop me. Being that much career-oriented, is marriage at all a question for you? So I laughed, and I gave him an answer that I feel was very shocking for him at this time. And I told him, well, I love my job. So given the observations I made from the society that women really quit their job in order to get married, I wasn't really liking that. So given the shock on his face, I could definitely tell he was not happy with my answer. But for me, this opened a new line of thought and a new line of passion, where I really want to study what is this correlation between marriage and employment. Is there really any contradiction between the two? Is this contradiction supported, actually? So I decide to take this to my PhD. So when I start my PhD, my supervisors ask me, do you really want to work on migration again? So I say, well, I'm torn between two passions, but I prefer to work on women or Egyptian women, and more specifically, young Egyptian women. So they asked me why. At a moment there, I stopped and I thought, the answer I gave my dad earlier won't really work here. So I had to take off the hat of the biased woman inside me and put on the hat of the unbiased, the realistic, the scientific researcher, and I had to show them sophisticated numbers. So we all know that women form approximately half of the Egyptian society. So by numbers, 49% of the Egyptian society is females. And to be more specific, 30% of them are below the age of 30. Large as numbers as they are, and shockingly, only 24% of them are active in the economy. And by active, we mean they're either employed or unemployed, but are actively looking for a job. So shocking as numbers as they are, they made me to think even further. Is this something supported by the data? Is this something that needs further research? Well, yes, it does. So, I'm sorry. So yeah, facts say that women are great in number, and this was a source, okay. And this was a source of bewilderment for me, and whether it's a decision that they make themselves, or is it a decision that was enforced upon them by the society, or is it a mix of both? And actually, another thought came to my mind. Does it really matter? Or is the conclusion of this what really matters? At this point, when I was very much devoted in working on my research, I met my husband, and I decided not to repeat the stereotypes, and I decided to get married, and meanwhile, keep on with my career and excel with my career. So with the personal life changes and the growing passion in my research, I started to look at the society around me with a different eye. So instead of just being another member of the society, I'm now an analytical observer, trying to look at everything and analyze why they are happening. So now, being just another working mother and a wife, I wake up every morning, I take my daughter to school, we go to the club for sports practices where I meet other women. So when I have the chats with the other women and we discuss it together, I was able to classify women mainly into 4 types. One type that's doing it all, they have their job, they're married, they're mothers, and they're happy with this. Another type are still doing it all, but are not happy with their life, and they're constantly thinking of quitting their jobs. A third type who from the beginning decided, I get married, I leave my job, thank you very much. The fourth type is, without even getting married, they decide it's not even worth it, I finish education, I'm not even going to look for a job. So I decided to go back to my data to verify these observations. So I found shocking numbers. It has actually been verified. Can you guess the percentage of women who are employed, are wives, and are mothers, and are happy with this life? They're actually 3%. So 3% of the employed women who are wives and mothers are happy with these choices. Is this a shocking number? Yes. So, from one side, society is pushing women into marriage because this is the society taboo. A woman has to get married. And I think we all know how an Egyptian or an Arab family behaves when a young girl in the family is not married. Every single family gathering, every single phone call has to include the term, عقبالك, when are you going to get married? Are you going to spend your life on education? Is marriage an option at all for you? So an Arab family with an unmarried girl is actually a family in crisis. On the other hand, the labor market is not really appreciating for women. So if they decide to work, they have 3 options. The public sector, and we know why do they prefer the public sector? Equal pay, flexible work hours, sick leaves, maternity leaves, you name it. But is the public sector actually still hiring? No, it's not. What are the alternatives? The private formal sector and the private informal sector. What happens with the formal sector? Very long working hours. They don't really prefer women. Why? Because by law, they are guaranteed a 4 paid months leave once they get kids. So why would an investor decide to pay someone money knowing they're getting 0 productivity from them for 4 whole months? And then they could freeze their job for a whole year and then decide to either quit or go back. Informal sector, not very prestigious. It's defined as a low-degree job for women in the Arab society. So is the labor market really appreciating women? No, it's not. Is the society appreciating an employed woman? No, it's not. So from one side, the labor market is not appreciating a married woman. From the other side, a marriage market is not appreciating an employed woman. Yes. So this has created a non-complementarity between the 2 markets, the marriage market and the labor market. Is there another shocking observation in the society? Yes. What is it? If I just allow you to think of your close family or your close circle of friends, how many women do you know of who have at least a university degree education and are neither employed or looking for a job? Many. The numbers show that the rate of education attainment for women is extremely high in the Arab society, but on the other hand, the rate of participation in the labor market is not as high. So is there a missed link here? Yes, and I'll take you back to marriage. So again, marriage is solving this mystery. How is this the case? Marriage is actually more appreciating of the education of women as opposed to the labor market. So on one hand, the Arab men usually, or the husbands, usually prefer to have an educated wife, being a social pride, knowing she's going to raise the kids, educate the kids, be aware of the nutrition and the health and so on. On the other hand, which is a more sophisticated finding, looking at the rate of return to investments in education. No investment is ever done without a reward at the end. So, what is the reward for the family's investments in their females' education? What they expect to get at the end. So if they're not participating in the labor market, there has to be another market that is well appreciating to their education, which is again the marriage market. So how did the data really prove this? Looking only at the cost of jewelry, which is a direct transfer to the bride herself upon marriage, you're going to find that the value of this jewelry is equivalent to the expected returns of the female in the labor market. So without looking at dowries, without looking at cost of ceremonies, just focusing on one component of the cost of marriage, it's actually equivalent to her expected returns in the labor market. Is this shocking? Well, so now we're saying society is pushing her towards marriage, labor market is not appreciating her, marriage is actually appreciating her education more than the labor market. So does this provide enough evidence for why women prefer one over the other? Yes and no. It gives a reason to why we see these rates of participation, but it doesn't actually reflect her choices. She's being pushed into one market over the other, given the appreciation of the society, of the labor market, and of the entire culture she's living in. Is this something that we need to worry or think about? Yes. So labor economists have always shown the imbalances that are taking place in the economy, given the lack of participation in the labor market, and they show that if women had been participating in the labor market as men, the GDP of Egypt could increase by around 34%. That's a shocking number on its own. On the other side, demographers have also referred to the problem of lack of employment for females. Why? A simple story. My generation, the generation of the 90s, is a baby boom generation. What does this mean? We formed a very huge base of children in the society. We grow up and we form another huge base of childbearing age females. What does this give rise to? Another baby boom. Is Egypt really ready for another baby boom? I'll leave that answer to you. Okay, so now we know economists are pushing one way or the other, demographers are, society is, culture is dictating. But where is actually woman's decision? When did she get to choose? When did she decide to follow her dreams and her passion to choose? Nothing at all in what has been mentioned refers to the passion of the woman and what exactly she thinks will bring her happiness herself. So, I would really hope that the society and the culture of the Arab world in general and of Egypt would allow women the opportunity to actually decide what is good for them. So if it is good for them to actually stay home, then the society has to appreciate this role of a stay-home mother focusing on educating and raising her kids. If it's better for the women to go into the labor market, then actually the policies have to change to make this labor market more attractive for women as opposed to other markets, which are the marriage markets mainly. So I hope in what I'm doing, I'm setting a good example for my daughter. So whenever she gets to choose what exactly she wants in her life, she knows she's able to choose. But on the other hand, I really wish the society and the culture in general would change and be appreciating of this choice. So regardless of what choice she actually wants to go for, society would have to change and be more accepting to this choice or this role of women. Thank you very much.
Inspire.